Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here today to talk about Karuba by designer Rudiger Dorn and published by Haba as part of his new family game line due out at the last half of 2015. This is a game for 2 to 4 players in which you are adventurers going to an island. You land on the shore. You're trying to find temples across the island, but each player has their own team of adventurers, and whoever gets to the temple first will get the most glory. That is points, of course. And you're trying to find some gold and crystals along the way to get some additional glory. And whoever's the most glory wins. How does this work? Here are most of the components of Karuba. Each player has an individual player board, which serves as a map of the island of Karuba. You have a set of 4 adventurers and 4 temples. You also have 36 tiles, each with a different color back in case they get mixed up. You have some crystals, some gold tokens that are shared, and you have the temple scoring tiles. 1 pile for each of the 4 temples with values 2 to 5. And you use all of these with 4 players, and you pulse them out with 2 and 3 players. To start, you're going to set up the island. One of the players is going to say, take a color and say, I think the brown temple goes on 30, the brown explorer goes on 110, and everyone else puts them in the same places. You have to have at least 3 spaces separating, so you can't do this, but that would be fine if you want to do that. So you go run the table and you're placing the guys on the board. Okay, you get everything set up here, and each player is going to have an identical setup. One player is going to pull tiles from the board, and as they do, they call out the numbers, 19, and everyone finds the same number of tile, and you put it on an empty space on the board. The restrictions for placing are that the number has to go to the upper left, and you can't cover anything, and they must actually be in a tile. You can't just like balance it on top of a temple, because what would that be? Okay. So once everyone has placed it, 8, and you put this down. Now you can put it on any empty space. You don't have to organize it. So I could take this 18 and I could just put it here. Oh, that's kind of a dunderheaded thing to do, but hey, you could do it if you want. All right, you can run in dead ends, so that would be fine. But ideally, you want to play things smartly that will actually benefit you. Right, why not? Okay, so you're going to call out things. You're going to build paths on the board. Wow, that's not so good. All right, 30. Oh, we'll put out 30 here. And eventually, as you're pulling things out, you're going to be drawing tiles that show crystals or gold. And when you do, you put one of those tokens on the tile on your board. Okay, 33. Hey, that's got a crystal too. And at some point, you're going to actually want to take your adventurers and move them to the temple. They just don't want to sit on the beach all day getting sunburned. So what you can do is instead of placing a tile on the board, you can choose to burn that tile for movement points. And you get as many movement points as the number of exits on that tile. So this is worth 2 movement points. You just take it and put it out of the game. And I move one of my adventurers up to 2 spaces. They have to follow along trails, and if I stop where there is a crystal or gold, I just take it and put it on the side. Crystals are worth 1 point, gold are worth 2. Okay, 6. Sure, we'll do that in here. 17, and you can alternate movement. Oh, instead of placing that there, I'm going to burn it. Move this guy and get my crystal. All right, 22. And you go on and on building. As soon as you get to a temple, you take whatever the topmost tile is, and you'll score that many points at the end of the game. Obviously, there has to be a path that reaches the temple. You can't just teleport over there because that's not much of a game, is it? The adventurers cannot pass one another on the path. So if this blue one goes up here, this purple one must stop. It can't pass right through it. I guess, I don't know. They take up a lot of space. They're very narrow trails through the forest here. And you keep going, keep pulling tiles from the board and adding them to the board until either one player gets all 4 adventurers to those temples, in which case the game ends at the end of that round, or all 36 tiles have been drawn. If 2 people reach a temple at the same time, they both get the same number of points. So I would take the 5 and the other person would get a 4 and a crystal, which is also 5 points. Once the game ends, you tally up your points for the temple tiles you've collected, as well as the crystals and gold, and whoever has the most points wins. And there's an overview of Karuba, which I played twice now on a press copy from Haba, once with 3 players and once with 4. And as you might tell from the description, the gameplay does not really change based on the number of players. You each have your own individual board. You're going to be blazing trails through that. right? Based on whatever you think is best. And you might start the same because you're going to draw a tile and all of you just magically say like, yes, this is the perfect place for that tile, and it's all the same. That's going to happen. But as the game progresses, you start differentiating depending on whether someone's trying to pick up all the gold and crystals along the way, you're trying to save up for the big plus movement tile so you can move some guy forward at once and race towards that temple. You're going to look at other people and see where they are on the board to try to possibly time it so you at least get to the temple at the same time as them if you don't beat them there. So at least you can keep up with them at points, but it all depends on what you're drawing. All right? It's a very simple, straightforward game. What's kind of neat, what I found amusing, is on the back here, Haba has this scale for how the games are rated, and what's highest on this is the Suchtpotenzial, the addictiveness. That's what that actually means, potential for addictiveness. Potential for addiction. It's a funny measure of a game, but it works for this type of game because that's actually what it has, right? You're pulling over the tiles and it's kind of like you're pulling the slot lever every time. What's going to come up? What's going to come up? What's going to come up? You know, and you're next to all these other gamblers and you are going to, right, follow your own path on your trail to addiction to see who actually scores first at the temple. Okay, that's right. That's why we have our language of addictiveness for Karuba.